What's up, folks? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. That means what are we doing on Tuesday? What do we do? What's that thing we do? Oh, we get tactical. That's what's going on today. How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the stream. We got a huge weekend in 40k this weekend. 2 super majors went down. The Frontline Gaming, LSO, and USO Tacoma. Between them, almost 700 players. And that's a lot. That's a lot of players. We basically had 1 LVO worth of super majors this weekend. Not quite, I guess. We're not quite there, but it's close. It's really close. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to, on my Best Armies in 40k video, obviously, we talked about the lists that won, the undefeated lists of those events. But today we're going to be talking about some of the other armies that also did well at those events. Tacoma drama talk time. I'm not going to talk about the drama chat. I've reached out to some people to get some details. I don't want to talk about Reddit stuff and like Reddit threads and all that stuff until I can get some details out of the horse's mouth, so to speak. So we're not really going to be covering the drama. I guess for those who don't know, the winner of USO Tacoma had received several yellow cards during the event for misplaying rules, and that was what happened. So we're not going to jump into it, but if there is something to talk about there, then I'll talk about it in a video. To be honest, I think a lot of it's speculation. There's a lot of stuff online where people are like, oh, this guy is the world's worst cheater and he deserves to be driven out of the community. And most of the stuff that was sort of alleged and the judges picked up on was like stupid shit, like stats that changed between editions and like the third clause of a rule being misplayed or whatever, which is obviously incorrect. But whether or not it was like an intentional cheating thing, I don't think that we have the information to say. So I'm not going to dive into that so much today. But we're going to talk about lists. We're going to talk about X and 1 lists and stuff like that. And I'm excited. I hope everyone else is excited as well. A little bit of housekeeping. The T5S2 Invitational currently ongoing. I just streamed a game literally about 10 minutes ago is when that game completed. And after this, give it about an hour or so after this stream concludes, I'll be back on my Twitch channel. We have 2 more games tonight. So we're basically streaming an entire tournament today over on Twitch. We've got a Blood Angels versus Thousand Suns and Adepta Sororitas versus Chaos Knights to not fully close out, but round out the T5S2 Invitational group stage. Please go hang out with me over on Twitch. Twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise is where those games are going down. I also, and I guess I will show this to you, over on my second channel. Did you know I have a second channel? By the way, chat, this is a whole extra channel. There's another Tactical Tortoise channel. Did you know? Were you aware? Is that crazy? And a bunch of the T5S2 group stages went up over the weekend. The other ones are still processing, and they're probably ready now, but they'll start to get posted over the course of the week. If you go down to playlists, there is a Season 8 Invitational playlist, and I want to give a shout-out to Ciania, that's Ash C, who is an Invitational player. You can find her, I guess I'll just literally copy her thing and throw it over into the chat. Go check her channel out because she actually streamed and hosted a bunch of the invitational games. So that playlist has her games as well as the games that I've streamed over on it. So that's going to be all the group stage games. The elimination stage games will be streamed on this channel basically starting next week, but that depends on when the players have time to play. So yeah, this is where all of my stream VODs go, by the way. So if you want to watch lots of TTS footage, then it's all over here. That's where that all goes. So after it comes off of my Twitch channel, basically all of the games show up over here at some point. It's not instantaneous. Usually they'll make the transition after they become unavailable for Twitch subscribers. So if you are a subscriber over on Twitch, you get instant access to all my games. But if you are But if you're not, then you can just wait till they come on over here, and there you go. So yeah, there's a bunch of commentated games for event finals and stuff like that, and then also the gameplay that I've done. It makes its way over here as well. So go subscribe to that channel if you haven't already. I actually hadn't posted much in it over the last couple of weeks because I was working on new TTS maps and stuff. That's where all my gameplay time went, and I was obviously traveling to events and to the NATC as well, which took up a ton of time on top of that. But we're back into it, and we're back into uploading streams over there. Just love the player names on TTS. Yeah, it's people's team names generally. So it's just people's whatever people's screen names are on on Steam makes it over. So sometimes you get silly ones, which is good, which is amazing. After LSO this weekend, kind of tired, feel even worse about Black Templars. Yeah, Black Templars are in a little bit of a rough spot. I think they were being buoyed by Ironstorm Spearhead, and getting the sort of vanilla Space Marine stuff nerfed definitely doesn't help them out. Yeah, Disappointing Salad is is an absolute legend. He missed the Invitational. I think players like they dive in and out of invitational play because throughout the T5S2 season they will put a bunch of time into T5S2 scoring points and versus IRL play, and I think Salad, it was an absolute legend, the season 6 invitational champion, I believe, if I remember correctly. If I remember my T5S2 history, we're on season 9, by the way. That's crazy. That's so many seasons. But he has just thrown his hat in the ring for season 9, which I'm so excited about. He missed the season 8 invitational by a smidge, so he'll be back for season 9 hopefully, which is great. Absolute fan favorite. What a legend. Big problem you have with TTS is the speed of play. That's so interesting. I do think that TTS has you win some, you lose some. I think that the total game time is slightly faster, if not the same as a standard game of 40k, but where time is saved shifts over from one place to another. Dice rolls, much easier on TTS. You can roll out like 120 attacks from like a huge, orc boy squad or something instantly. You'd be like, click the button, take that many saves. Whereas in person, you're like, all right, I got the number of dice, right? Roll them and pick out all the successes. Oh, this many. Also, moving large units in TTS much faster because you just like drag and click on them and then move them all. The downside, obviously, is that like you get some weird stuff that's easier to do in real life. That's why on my map pools, I never include upper level terrain, because that's one thing in TTS that actually like eats a bunch of time. Is if you have multi-level terrain, it can actually like mess with. When models have auto raise enabled on them, it like messes with their positioning, and it makes it really difficult to like get your guys in the right spot. And so that's hopefully a little bit of a time saver there. But yeah, the big time saver for TTS, in my opinion, is the setup and takedown. You don't have to travel to a venue, and you don't have to set up a table. So like already you're in for the game time, right? 2.5 to 3 hours, and that's it. There's no other time obligation in there, and that's a big bonus to TTS. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to find you don't have to schedule ahead of time. Get stuck in traffic. Go find a mat. Clear the table off. Put all the terrain up. It's all done for you, which is nice. Yeah. Wish there was a tool to set up models 2 inches in place and move them as a group. How picky are people on model placement? Is okay as long as you have good communication. People are like, I think it is. So good communication is important. Generally speaking, if you're like, my intention is to do this, and you put your models there, people aren't going to like call you on stuff, but correct positioning is still important. So I would say there's certain people on TTS, and the general community on TTS is certainly pickier about specific positioning stuff than in real life, which because it's a little bit more precise, right? You can see like exact distances between models at all times. So they're definitely pickier, but a lot of people don't want to waste anyone's time. Just like, oh, I got to do the minutiae of like shifting this guy around when I move, and so you'll be like, hey, I want to move these guys like here, and you'll probably be like, okay, and then you just like fix them when you have time or whatever. That's usually how it ends up, and you'll get faster at it as you play more. I mean, I'm like, whatever. I don't want to say I'm like 4-digit games into TTS, but I'm certainly hundreds of games into TTS, definitely. And like, you end up just doing that stuff sort of like as habit eventually. You have to have your wife yelling at you, though? That's, I don't know if that's a Warhammer-related problem, to be honest, Jan. Are there starter leagues in T5S2? Started playing the game last year. Oh, yeah, so there are. We run them occasionally. Usually, we call them Youngblood leagues. Basically, we'll run a tournament format, like a Swiss paired tournament format, but there will be no standings points or prizes on the line. All of the prizes will be raffled to all the players, and there's no requirement for chess clock. So the intention is that it's a more casual, like a laid back format. You're not in there to win. You're in there to learn how to play the game. I keep promising that we're going to run a GT and a Youngbloods league, and that will happen very soon. When it happens is up to when I have time to set them up, because it takes a couple hours. Notice in your game store games, as long as you say what you're trying to do, usually you'll be fine with subpar positioning. Yes. Yeah, that's how 40k operates, like, correctly. Playing by intention is what that's called. Somebody described this quote sticks in my head, but somebody described Warhammer 40,000 as a shared hallucination that two people share over a table, right? Where the physical models on the table are like a representation of the game state, but the actual game state is sort of nebulous, and it's up to you and your opponent to decide on what it is. So you're like, I'm going to move these guys here. My intention is that they can't be engaged through this wall, and the other player is like, yeah, sure, you got it. And then they play as if that unit was not at an inch of that wall, assuming that that's what you meant to do, which I think is great. Thanks for the people following over on Twitch, by the way. I'm not live over on Twitch, but I do have the alert set up. So thanks for the people who jumped over there. That's the cleanest way to play 40k and the most active way to play 40k. The one thing that you have to keep in mind, though, is that intention, in order for that intention to be shared by two people, and I think this is an important discussion for the community to have, it must be verbalized, right? That style of play only works if both players are in agreement. So if you move your models up to a wall and then pass the turn and your opponent charges them, and you said, oh, I meant to be an inch away, and your opponent's like, well, you aren't, though. Like, that's valid. But if you tell them and you have that discussion before that move happens, then suddenly, like, the game state then, that fact becomes manifested within that game state. So that's one thing that you do have to keep in mind. Intention has to be shared between two players. It's not something that can be sort of kept in your head. Like, oh, my intention was to play optimally. And you're like, well, you got to actually do that. But if you're in open communication with your opponent and you and your opponent are on the same page, Warhammer 40,000 works so much better as a game. And that's true of every miniatures game. Literally every miniatures game works like that. And I would say almost every tabletop game. You can play like a card game or a board game maybe, and everything's sort of locked in on the game components, but most games just travel better when you explain to your opponent exactly what you're trying to do, and they understand what's going on. TOs in your area encourage everybody to play by intent. Yeah, that's the correct way to play. Correct. I think every TO and everywhere encourages people to do that. Is the audio a little hot? I can turn it down. I might have had it turned up because of last weekend, actually. Turn it down to that. Hopefully, let me know if that sounds good. Everybody intends not to make mistakes. Yeah, one of my favorite My favorite quotes is a friend of mine was playing in a pretty high intensity game, and he goes to the start of his movement phase, and he pre-measures. He goes, hey, my unit, like, I'm gonna do these things. I'm gonna buff their speed. I'm gonna move them to this position. And if I do that and I rotate this model this way, like I'll get line of sight from the edge of my model to your unit. And his opponent went, oh, but my intention was that you couldn't do that. And my friend goes, but you didn't say that, and they are in line of sight. And my intention is to shoot them, so I'm gonna do that, and that's fair. Like if the intention is described, and you say, hey, I'm gonna rotate these guys such that that unit can't move over here and shoot me, for sure. But if you just don't do that, you can't be you can't your opponent can't be held accountable to that. More experienced players tend to be nice about informing you if you made a mistake. Yeah, that's generally the case. People who are like highly experienced don't really have any impetus to like just try to get you on stuff. Whereas you'll find a lot of the people who try to hold you to like the very specifics of your positioning and stuff like that are folks who are like really scrambling for those wins. You know what I mean? Ill-tempered Fireblade, you were there for that game? Yeah. Yeah, that game, absolutely classic stream. That's what my intention is to shoot at you is one of my favorite quotes. Good stuff. If you want to hear something funny, Tacoma Open gives brand new Prime Nexus secondary cards. This year, the cards didn't have the secondary titles on them. They forgot to write the name of the secondary? Wild. Far too many people just move stuff around and roll dice without saying what it's for. Yeah, I have played against people like that. That's usually like it's a stern. You have to have a stern talk to them, right? Usually, if you call people on what they're doing, like a lot of times, like people just get in their own heads. It's not like they're not trying to mislead you or anything, but they're just like they're sub-vocalizing their game plan without really explaining it to your opponent, and you just be like, hey man. You have to be, it's an open communication game. You have to tell me what you're doing, otherwise I don't understand. And that's just how it works. Yeah. My intention is to beat you. My intention is to outplay you and beat you in this game. And so I think we can just say that happens, right? I think that's fine. They just came around with second decks for everybody. They just like reprinted them. That's Chad. That's wild. Cool though. Yeah, some people definitely are shy for sure, and tabletop gaming I think generally sort of definitely has a community of those people, 100%. All right, chat. Let's talk about some lists. I think we've talked long enough about playing by intent. I think it's a good it's a good discussion for the community to have, and definitely sort of have that discussion with your opponents before you play games. That alleviates so many problems down the line. And if you can showcase that you've been an open and fair communicator with your opponent throughout the game, there should not be any issues ever. I see some people who are like, "Oh man, I see drama or whatever, and I'm scared to go to tournaments." Like, really? Those issues do not crop up often, and if you are in communication with your opponent and everyone's having a good time, then you're gonna have a fun time. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about the USO Tacoma first. So I know that there was a little bit of, I don't want to say controversy, but there were some open questions. USO Tacoma, if we go to pairings, used a top bracket system. So it cut to top 4 of their first bracket. However, in order to get to that top 4, there was a shadow round after round, I want to say it was round 6. At least to my knowledge. This is what I was told. If this isn't the case, then somebody can correct me. And unfortunately, that did not allow our number 5 to get into that top 4. So we, while these players were all undefeated, Steve Trimble over here unfortunately got cut out and did not get to play in the top cut here, which is too bad. But I saw a lot of people like, oh, what's going on with that? Is this some sort of skullduggery? No.
What was the GSC win rate at Tacoma? I mean the Codex is Z tier.
The GSA win. I don't know about at Tacoma specifically. We can look in the last week though. Oh, I don't have stats for the last week actually. I don't know. It's in the 40s, I think. It's like low 40s. I don't know exactly what it was at Tacoma. I guess like, could we look at all the GSC players? I bet there weren't that many. Oh no, there were 2! Well, it's worse than 40s, chat. They won 2 of... They played through all their games. Shout out to Brent Beardsley and Brian Frank for just sticking it out, man. Holy shit. They played 16 games and won 2 of them, so that is 1 in 8. That's like a 15% win rate. Oh, 13% win rate. Yikes. Oh man, that's a yikes for me, dog. That codex is really bad. Holy shit. Wow. Wow. That's the biggest event of the weekend. That's one of the biggest events of the edition so far. And we had 2 GSC players with a total of 2 wins. Shout out to a 40-point draw, though. That's kind of impressive. Ouchie. Ouchie. Yeah, we need Robin Roberts back. Oh, yeah, he's in chat. Robin, get back in there, buddy. Find something. Get in that codex. Tear it apart. Use those crab claws to get in. I shared a meme. I don't know if this is... I don't know. This is a weird meme. I don't like the... Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I shared a meme with a friend the other day that I saw on Twitter. Somebody was posting like 40k waifus, and they posted the Gene Stealer called GF, the Gene Stealer GF. I appreciated that. She really wants you to join her friend group, and she's really eager to start a family with you. Or my favorite Gene Stealer called GF. Bonuses, I guess. Also gives really good hugs. Got 3 arms. Also really good at remodeling houses, I guess, because she'll just demolition charge them. But that's the best thing to come out of the Gene Stealer Call Codex, I think, so far. But yeah, you got to use those good hugging arms to get in there and remodel some GSE lists, because oh my god, it's not working out for them so far. Jesus Christ. There was a single GSE win at a tournament. So I think I covered an undefeated list a couple of weeks ago. They have won tournaments. So this is definitely an outlier because their win rate is not actually 13%. It's much better. But it is difficult. They will certainly win events at a much lower rate than other factions for sure. 100%. One thing we were just talking about on stream actually a couple hours ago, which is really interesting. Oh, I closed my tab. Oops. Is that like GSC needs some love? Adepta Sororitas maybe need a tap on the you know, little tap right on the knee there with the reflex hammer. But we're like almost halfway through or we're like a quarter way through the season already. We're mid-July, so we're probably going to see a early or a late September, early October update. So we're like probably between 6 weeks and 2 months away from another update, which is like feels like already being almost halfway through this season. It was like, what the fuck? It sort of just hit me. I was like, oh my god, that's wild. All right. So speaking of the Tyranids, the undefeated Tyranids, we'll talk about them. I think first off, Steve Trimble. So he was 8-0 at the event. Unfortunately, the event did use bracketing. So one thing that I do want to pay a point to, I guess, a little bit of a lens on, is that the USO Tacoma used the bracketed sort of placement system. So at the end of the, I think it's the fourth round, they cut everyone into brackets. That's why Steve Trimble is over here at 8-0, but not in the top 4, because they cut to a top 4 for bracket 1 for the final day. So all these players played each other, basically. They played like a round robin in order to actually get to the win. So that unfortunately meant that the way that this works is that once you're bracketed after the 4th round, you basically are separated out into a tournament composed entirely of that bracket. So your placement in the event is locked into whatever bracket that you're part of. So it is very difficult to sort of like break through to these top levels if you've lost a game early, because if you aren't within like the top 32 after round 4, which basically means you're entirely undefeated, you have no chance of scoring in like this top area here. Which is, I in my opinion, I think it's a bad system. I understand why they do it. It's a little bit more of a casual format than it is for competitive play, but I do think that it's unfortunate for the people who are trying to place highly. If you have a bad round early, you get like a real killer in round 1 or something, and then win all your other games, you're still like fucked on your final placement, which sucks. But anyway, Steve Trimble, 8-0, did not get in the top 4, unfortunately. Was running a Vangaurd Onslaught with double Broodlords. So there's something to these Broodlords, chat. Clearly something's working. Double Broodlords and the Swarmlord. I'm interested about the Swarmlord because I think the lists with the Swarmlord tend to see some enormous success. Exactly how they get played is it is of great interest to me, because the Swarmlord himself he's kind of squishy. He's a little slow, but once he gets up in there, he's got a good melee profile, and Lord of Deceit is awesome. So I think you have to be very cognizant of the terrain and the positions where he can stage getting up the table in order to actually get that Lord of Deceit into a useful position. You also have to know when Lord of Deceit is useful and when it's not. If you're like CP taxing your opponent on stupid stuff that doesn't really matter, who really cares? But if you can get in on a unit that does want to be spending multiple command points, then he's much better. He's also really good in a defensive capacity, because if your opponent is coming at you, you have a much easier chance to get Lord of Deceit on them. He is incredibly small. That's true. He is really, really, really tiny. Yeah, I think he's behind my big box over here, but I do have a Swarmlord. He's about 3 1/4 inches tall. He's about this big. If he's assembled conservatively, you can definitely assemble him very large. You see a lot of people with the conversions where they have like a jumping Swarmlord and he's way up, but then he actually becomes much easier to see. Sure line of sight is amazing, chat. It's the best thing. At least the Swarmlord doesn't die to 2 plasma pistols. That's true. That's true. He dies to, what did he die to today? It was 2 Castigators, which is much, much more realistic. Or it was 3 Castigators, and he lived, and then I think he died to something else. A Hive Tyrant died to 2 Dominions, though. No, it was the Dominion Immolator. It wasn't even the squad. The Immolator shot him, and he died. That was impressive. You can't let any shots go through with Sisters. If any shots go through from them, it's just the end of the world. So 2 units of 10 Gene Stealers for those Broodlords to jump into. A Bio 4. Triple Lictors. Absolutely love the Lictors in this edition. I talked about how I think that every Tyranid list should probably have Lictors in it now. Especially because we're in a metagame that's kind of dominated by sort of an MSU, this MSU style. Most of the armies that are very effective have a lot of little 5 model units. And the Lictor is just like a nightmare for like light utility units. Nothing, if you're a strength 3 like T3 infantry, he wounds you on 2s, probably puts you on an invuln if you have it, and you can't do anything to him because you're winning on 6s. So like the Lictor is just this, for 55 points, just this absolute god machine. Plus it's good at defending against the sort of aggressive melee pushes. Plus it screens out infiltrators for your Broodlords to move up the table. Lictors just rule. Double Molochs for the Downy Uppy, plus a Trigon. Sick. That's really cool as well. That's just so much forward pressure, right? Like you can run the Gene Stealers into your opponent, push them into their deployment zone, drop 2 Molochs on them, either top of one, potentially top of one with seeded broods, if you have enough space to place them, and then turn 2, rapid ingress the Trigon and also hit it. So your opponent's just locked in their deployment zone. There's nothing it can do. Plus a melee bioweapon Tyranid warrior unit, which is a really good problem solver. These guys rule. And a Zoanthrope unit for the Neurotyrant to jump into. No enhancements on the Neurotyrant, which is interesting. We've been seeing a lot of armies just sort of forego hunting grounds more recently, which is usually where the Neurotyrant, the enhancements that the Neurotyrant caddies around. And I guess less people are focused on strategic reserves and stuff, so it hasn't been quite as effective as it normally is. But that's surprising to me. Like being able to battle shock uppy downies and stuff when they come off the table I think is really good. So I don't know. Can Lord of Deceit stack if you have 2 sources? It's an aura, so no. It doesn't stack on the same stratagem, but you can have it in 2 separate places. That is one thing that they sort of changed. There were some meme builds that you could take in Space Wolves, for example, that could stack up to 3 Lords of Deceit, or the previous CP tax version. Because you could get a Calidus, you could get the Veteran of the Shadow War, or whatever it was, in the Vanguard Spearhead, and you could get Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and you could triple slam a either like double tax 2 secondaries or triple tax 1 secondary, just make it impossible for it to be reused. Or just hit, like, if your opponent has a bunch of battle taxes, just hit every single one of them. That was cute, but I don't know if it was that good. Usually you capped at 2 typically, but still having 2 instances of that effect is I think still strong. Thanks to the Downy Uppy. Yeah, I'm sold on Downy Uppy for sure. Absolutely. So we can have Volgons do 0 damage with Melting Crack into a monolith. And then Fidelis to casual 10. Morvenval's broken, chat. PSA, nerf that fucker. She's so stupid. What, like, she's the +1 to hit and wound. Even if it, like, discount the unit she's attached to, right? She has to attach to a unit to get the rerolls, I understand, and to get all the bonuses. Like, once her Paragons die, she kind of sucks. But Morvenval by herself is, like, basically worth the cost of the entire unit. She's +1 to hit and wound with, at minimum, 8 attacks, but that probably turns into way more between blast and sustained hits. With full rerolls. It's, like, ludicrous. It's ludicrous. She's wounding like basically the whole game on 3s or 4s with full rerolls, hitting on 2s, rerolling, sustains. It's like, what were they thinking? What are they thinking? She hits on 2s into stealth. You could smoke screen and it doesn't affect her. What? That's ridiculous. Hunting Ground's powerful in the Vanguard Onslaught Mirror. Yeah, if you want to tech for the Vanguard Onslaught Mirror, I guess it's good. It is like a little pricey, and if you're playing your Neurotyrant or whoever has the enhancement more aggressively, you could lose it early. And so one thing that because in that list, in Steve Trimble's list, it was attached into a Zoanthrope unit, and so it might be a thing that you use as a trading piece, and then you just, as soon as you think you're going to lose it, you just shadow them instantly, and then it doesn't matter if the Narrow Tyrant dies. And you're more incentivized to play the Narrow Tyrant more conservatively if it has like passive enhancements on it. So there's an argument there to not to include it in that instance. We also had the cute Chameleonic on the Winged Tyranid Prime to give his unit cover all the time is actually kind of sweet. I like that. Oh, I didn't have my camera out, by the way. Oops, my bad. You all watched me clicking, but didn't move back to the screen share. Did you give it to one of the Broodlords? Probably not. Broodlords are usually pretty Boolean. As soon as their unit commits, they usually just die instantly, is my experience. Not because they're the easiest thing in the world to kill. You're obviously protected by 20 wounds with an invuln save, but you're also, let's talk about the top 4. But you're also, you're just so lethal, right? You're so dangerous. It's like a 250 point like melee beat stick that your opponent can't leave in their deployment zone. Scott Ketchum, so second place at Tacoma was Scott Ketchum with Adepta Sororitas. I think it's a normal-ass list. There's 3 Cascaders, there's 3 Emulators, there's Dominions and stuff. Okay. Good job, Scott Ketchum. You definitely did play Adepta Sororitas. Chuck Arnett with Leagues of Votann, though. Starting strong with a Brokir Iron Master. That's cool. 2 Einherjar champions and a Grimnir. No Grim Demeanor on any of these guys. 2 Sagitors, a 6er of Brokir Thunderkin, 2 5-man Chthonian Berserks. So there's not a single Hearthkin warrior in this list. The Berserks are going into the Sagitors, and that's it. 2 units of 5 Einherjar Hearthguard, 2 Hekaton Land Fortresses, and a bunch of Hernkin Pioneers. Not even taking Hernkin Jaegers either. So this is like man, Leagues of Votann are so interesting because they take like 3 data sheets and they make a bunch of different varieties out of them. Like the careful alchemy that they do on which of their like crazy data sheets that they prioritize changes things so much. So this list has a ton of scouting, right? 2 Sagitors plus 15 Hernkin Pioneers, and that normally will create will sort of like construct a buffer zone for Einherjar Hearthguard to jump into, but instead what we're doing is we're basically using that to clear the way for the land fortresses. And then the land fortresses are actually delivering the Einherjar Hearthguard themselves. So this list absolutely like just fucking takes over the center of the table because you're going to be trying to pin your opponent, right? You're trying to jet bike jail your opponent with the Hernkin Pioneers early so that you can you can block movement lanes and you can run the land fortresses up to an aggressive position. And then regardless of what your opponent does, you're always in a position to counterpunch with the Einherjar Hearthguard on the subsequent turns. So that list is real sick. Plus you have this Brokir Thunderkin unit that if your opponent doesn't screen, can still just like mess with them. Because it's probably jumping out with the buff from the Brokir Iron Master as well. Good old Leagues of Votann, man. What an army. I'm glad that they finally got that army to a place that actually is, like, viable. Because they spent so long being super lame. Jaden Iwasa with Space Wolf. Somebody asked about Bjorn the Fell-Handed on the thumbnail. This is where Bjorn the Fell-Handed on the thumbnail came from. We get some Champions of Russ chats. This detachment actually ended up being pretty good. The ability to automatically unlock a saga at the beginning of the game means that you can kind of turn it into like a poor man's Gladius Task Force, because you can turn on the, I think it is, I'm going to say it's Saga of the Warrior Born, and then I'm going to look it up and see if I'm right. It's the saga that gives you sustained hits, which also unlocks a stratagem that gives you advance and charge. So you basically have a really crappy version of Assault Doctrine available to you whenever.
Any assimilation swarm lists at the Tacoma Open? I'm curious what the power level of the detachment is this season, considering all its units are discounted in the new season and Swarmy is good.
It is Warrior Born chat? Hell yeah. Ryan G, thank you for the super chat. Yeah, we'll take a quick peek at the other Tyranid lists. I believe that the that there were quite a few Tyranids in the top 16. I don't know what detachments they used, but we will definitely take a peek and see if we can find any assimilation. I agree with you though. I think assimilation swarms like the sleeper because it was already starting to see success. Like people had begun to unlock it at the end of Leviathan, and it just got better in the new update. So we'll see. We were talking about Space Wolves real quick. Yeah. So, Saga of the Warrior Born, you can use Relentless Assault once it's unlocked to advance and charge. And that means that you get all the cool, like, Space Wolf specific synergies on attached. And you also get, like, a threat range extender for your melee stuff, which is what Space Wolves need. And to be perfectly honest, I think it's what basically the entirety of Space Marines needs, outside of detachments that make jump pack infantry really good. If you have the sort of base attack profile bonuses like Sons of Sanguinius do, then you're okay with the weaker hitting, higher speed units. But what you really want to be doing is getting the slower heavy infantry into melee, and it's tough to do that without advance and charge, which is why Gladius Task Force and Stormlance are so strong. This time, it looks like we're rocking some Wolfguard Battle Leaders, some Thunderwolves over here. We have Herald Deathwolf, who is I want to say he's the Mantle of the Troll King guy, right? I can never keep Herald Deathwolf and Canis Wolfborn separate. And even when I play them myself, I've like literally gotten their abilities confused. Yeah, he's the Mantle of the Troll King guy, so he's really tough to kill. He also gives you devastating wounds on your Thunderwolf attacks, which is, I guess, fine. 3 Thunderwolf Battle Leaders, 2 Wolf Lords on Thunderwolves as well. So it looks like we have a Foot Logan Grimnar. It looks like Herald Deathwolf is actually double attaching with a Wolfguard Battle Leader into a unit. And we have a Thunderhammer with Black Death. Black Death is interesting. It gives you anti-monster, anti-vehicle. So attaching that to a devastating wound weapon is really, really effective combo. 2 Scout Squads, 3 units of Thunderwolf Cavalry, and Canis Rex. So first of all, I love the fact Canis Rex is cute to me in a Thunderwolf in a Space Wolf army because he is already thematically appropriate, right? Where we've fired Canis Wolfborn. That guy sucks. Get him out of here. We've taken the superior Canis instead in our 0 to 1 Canis slot that you get in every Space Wolf army. We put Canis Rex in there. But he's also cool because he diversifies your profile quite a bit, right? He's maneuverable. He doesn't have the same downside that the Thunderwolf Cavalry have, where he can get blocked by walls. So he allows the army to maneuver around terrain much more easily than you would by just having Thunderwolf Cavalry. He gives you a good gun that is not the greatest profile in the world, but at any point, because he's just an insane casino gun, Canis Rex can just one-shot like anything in the game. If he rolls 6 shots and rolls a bunch of 5s to hit, you're basically dead regardless of what you are. Obviously, the chances that you get that are very low, but your opponent has to respect it, which means they can't just like play out in the open and play in the sprinkler like they could against a all pure melee Stormlance army. So he works so well with the Thunderwolf Cavalry. And then on top of that, we also have the huge melee buff from Logan Grimnar. And Bjorn the Fell-Handed feels like he works really well with them as well. Because the turn after they commit, he can get up in a position where enemies trying to come back into the Thunderwolves are going to get hit by the Lord of Isidora. And they're going to have a tough time. He's also just stupidly hard to kill, by the way. This dude halves damage and has a 5+ feel no pain. He's like a Catan Shard. He's like silly difficult to kill. He's like a Catan Shard with Armor of Contempt. He's incredible. Bjorn the Fell-Handed is an absolute nightmare. "100% sick to death of running Gladius. Orcs have sustained and advance in charge." I mean, do they, though? They have advance in charge for 1 turn, and then it turns off for the rest of the game. Space Marines do it whenever they want for a CP. Gonna meme Canis meets Canis Wolfborn. Yeah, every Canis in the game needs to get played next to each other. All right, we are on a quest for some Tyranid lists. Chris Young is running Invasion Fleet. With a Winged Hive Tyrant and Swarm Lord. So this, I need to find within myself the courage to play this list, because this combination of characters is like my favorite thing. Winged Hive Tyrant plus Swarm Lord, just bro-fisting up the table, plus hold one eye, is rad. And you're an Invasion Fleet, so you can 5+ feel no pain, just like Windmill Slam that whenever you want. We're also running a Maliceptor and triple Exocrine to follow things up. This list rules. This list is so cool. It's just like the hold in the middle of the table is so tenuous, right? Because you have the Maliceptor and you have the Carnifex Brick that are relatively tough to kill. Plus, you have like a good number of battle line units that can sort of screen for you. Once those are gone, though, you're basically like 3 Exocrines and 2 Hive Tyrants. And Hive Tyrants are not the easiest, they are not the hardest thing in the world to kill. Those guys will just fall over instantaneously. You're also not running a Neuro Tyrant in this list. But I think it's undeniably effective because lists like these do continue to do well. They just seem like it's like your gameplay is on the edge of a knife with these things. Because if you hit a situation where your opponent could like trivially kill the Hive Tyrant and Swarm Lord, like I don't know what you do, you just lose. It's so interesting though. Is there an orc detachment with permanent advance and charge? I don't believe that there is. There's the Bully Boys detachment that gives you 2 rounds of WA. So it's not permanent, but it's most of, it's 40% of the game. I don't know what Cult of Speed gives you. I think that's advance and shoot. Yeah, that's advance and fall back and shoot. I don't believe anything gives you a permanent advance and charge. Just the extra round. Somebody in chat can correct me if I'm wrong about that. Yeah, I think if somebody was permanent wahing themselves, unless I'm forgetting something, I don't think that they were playing correctly. The index attachment is War Horde. Originally it was called Wa Tribe, now it's called War Horde. Another Invasion Fleet from Mike Buns. I hope this guy does a lot of squats, because I feel like you're sort of contractually obligated to do so. I think that, I don't know. I think they come for your house if you don't. Also in Invasion Fleet, running a Hive Tyrant, Neuro Tyrant, and Swarm Lord. I wish we saw more perfectly adapted Hive Tyrants. Those make me happy. But adaptive biology is also good. 2 units of 10 Hormigons because they're rad. Some Barbgons, also rad. Double Exocrine, a Lictor. 1 Mawloc? 1 Mawloc? What is that? I guess the Mawloc's kind of cute as like a heroic intervention. Or a rapid ingress. You can shoot somebody onto low wounds with Exocrines, and then kill them with a Mawloc on their turn, and actually like messes with people. Plus the Mawloc's the weird thing about the Mawloc is that like he doesn't synergize at all with Invasion Fleet, but Invasion Fleet synergizes very well with his profile, because any of the critical hit effects are really good on the Mawloc because it has 1 trillion attacks. It has 17 attacks. So getting sustained or lethal hits on that thing, and especially like the 5-up critical hits, these guys can go absolutely nuts. So you kind of buy them as a melee unit in Invasion Fleet, which feels wrong, but for 145 points, they're actually kind of good at it. plus a Norn Emissary, 2 units of Raveners, a Tyrant Guard unit, interesting, a Von Ryan's Libra unit, and a little tiny baby Zoanthrope unit. These Invasion Fleet lists, yeah, they're so cool. Let's see. I don't know if we're finding any assimilation swarms today, although we can look over at the Lone Star Open. There's another invasion fleet. Let's take a quick peek at Lone Star Open. We can see what the Tyranid players are playing. Obviously, I talked about Nathaniel Bjorg's list last week at yesterday on the best armies in 40k. This is a Synaptic Nexus, but they didn't tell you. Double Norn Emissaries and a Terrain Effect. You'd love to see it. That's another Vanguard Onslaught. Yeah, I think we're shit out of luck on the assimilation swarms chat. I apologize. Which is weird. I think I don't know. Maybe it's that it's like a little bit experimental, maybe a little bit awkward into like the big gun lines today, because there's a lot of armies that can one tap the heavy infantry units. Like Tyrant Guard aren't actually that hard to kill, but I bet that it is better than people are giving you credit for. Just less straightforward than Invasion Fleet. I think it's harder to play. Got a little Dark Angels action from Jeff Jew over here. And a Gladius Task Force. Azrael, Combi Weapon Lieutenant. No Lionel Johnson. I'm actually like terrified of Lionel Johnson. I have no idea how to deal with that guy. I think his combination of abilities is really good. He's also, for those who haven't played against him, he's also kind of... He got a bunch of buffs in the update in that he now almost acts as a Lord of Deceit because he has his like CP taxing or his weird like CP manipulation effect within 12 inches of him. If you use a command point, if he chooses that Primarch ability, the Secrets Revealed is what it's called, he can force a Battle Shock check on you. If you fail it, the stratagem fizzles and he gains a CP. Or he gains a CP permanently. So he's like a situational CP generator, and then also can make your he can fuck with your command points. So that ability alone is crazy good because it basically just prevents you from using command points or stratagems at all in the radius around him, unless you can guarantee that you pass those tests. Because using a stratagem and having it have no effect is brutal, absolutely brutal. On top of that, he also gives a Feel No Pain against Mortal Wounds, which was not good previously, but now works against Devastating Wounds. So he synergizes well with the big heavy infantry units that like to have that. So honestly, I think he's really good. We're not taking him in this list, obviously, but that is some additional sort of nuance to that data sheet that I didn't talk about previously. Still a bit overpriced unless your list is optimized. Yeah, I don't disagree with that for sure. I think that there's still something to be said for, like, as a beat stick, he's fine. He has Deep Strike, like, randomly, because he can like, teleport through the Dark Forest or whatever the fluff justification is. But that means that he's, like, kind of an insane rapid ingress. So you can sort of play him by himself, and he can just be this, like, super annoying bully. But he's definitely, he's only worth like the full 3 Hunsky probably if you're using him to protect like the infantry bricks for sure. So we got 3 Jump Back Assault Intercessor squads, 3 Deathwing Knight squads, an Infiltrator squad, a Scout squad, and this is interesting, a Dark Shroud protecting 2 Vindicators. So it's like, this is a 10-man Assault Intercessor squad. That's Azrael probably joining into. So this is 20 wounds with a 4+ invuln, and all of those chain sword attacks with sustained hits from Azrael, with wound rerolls. This combination seems sweet. Azrael actually, I think, is probably like he's sort of like low key the most insane character ever. He gives you CP regen, and he has two leadership effects that are both like really relevant. Eat your heart out. Who is it? Like the Primaris Librarian, the dude who's like, I have 4+ invuln for you. You get a 4+ invuln save. Who cares about that guy? That guy's stupid. You want Azrael? He rules. He also, we talked about it on stream a little while ago, but some folks in chat turned me on to the fact that he has the Deathwing keyword, so he makes his unit Deathwing, so he turns you on for Inner Circle Strike Force, which is crazy. So if you want to get +1 to wound with like a bunch of deuced guns, you can put Azrael in the unit, and they turn on. They need to give him back Cypher's sword. But doesn't Cypher have that sword? What sword would Cypher use? So that's, to sort of close out discussion of this list, that's kind of a good counterpunch, right? Because Azrael's usually kind of a backline character to these double Vindicators. So we can take the middle of the table with Vindicators and a trillion Deathwing Knights. And then we get a bunch of these little utility units and some pretty hard-hitting counter assault. This list is really cool. I like this. It's very straightforward, and I appreciate that. A little bit of Tau Empire action over here. Donald Plummer in Retaliation Cadre. This Retaliation Cadre in the last week or two has been doing so well, and I'm here for it. Commander Farsight, the prototype weapon system, Cold Star Commander, an Enforcer Starfire Ignition System. One strike team, one breacher team. Strike teams have also been getting a little bit of a lease on life. I think they got a discount in the June update, if I remember correctly. And I guess a lot of people are just taking them because they're super cheap. So like 75 points, you get a bunch of dudes with a 4+ save and a Guardian Drone. So they're -1 to be wounded. They have a solid save, and they're OC2, and they just run around. And they shoot. They have a long weapon range too, so they can contribute. They're not just doing nothing. But as a utility unit, they're fine. Way more efficient than a breacher team at 100. And a Pathfinder team's at 90, I think, right? We get a Devilfish, big broadside battlesuit team, 2 broadside battlesuits in that one. Fire Knife team, Star Scythe team, Sunforge team, 1 Ghost Kill battlesuit. Yeah, there's the Pathfinder team. It is 90. Double Riptide, triple Stealth battlesuit, and a Vespid Stingwing unit. Pretty standard stuff. Less battlesuits than we're used to, but we do have that little breacher team, which is much better as an aggressive unit. Much higher OC and much faster, which is good. I think a lot of people, I don't know, the breachers are kind of a controversial unit. The big thing that I've always found with them in Tau armies is that they give Tau what is essentially a melee unit. They aren't actually a melee unit, but they operate like one. If you move on to an objective, they will just move up into essentially charge range and then shoot you instead of charging you, which is kind of a side grade. It means that they're a bit worse at actually taking objectives, but usually that doesn't matter so much. And but the effect is the same, right? They flip they have a long threat range. They flip the objective, and then they hold it for a turn. And they kill whatever's on it, so they're just like a trading unit. Isn't the Marine Army also reasonably cheap? I know Deathwing Knights I bet are kind of expensive because they just got a new kit. How much is a Deathwing Knight? $70. They're $14 a piece, so I don't know. I guess all the regular infantry is pretty cheap, but the elite stuff is where things start to get kind of expensive. We have another Space Wolves, another Champions of Russ, and it looks like another Thunderwolf army. Yeah, we don't have to spend too much time on this. This is just... Linton Rowan over here is trying to... he's trying to relive the glory days of Stormlands Task Force. He's like, don't worry, guys. We can do it again. I'm going to play Champions of Russ with triple Thunderwolf Cavalry, triple Wolf, and 2 Combi Weapon Lieutenants, and just, like, go for it. And the Combi Weapon Lieutenants are kind of interesting because they're actually probably pretty good at unlocking your sagas, right? They can do Saga of Majesty. I guess sometimes. It's a little tough. And they can do Saga of the Bear pretty well. Because they have a Feel No Pain, so they oftentimes don't die to a single attack. A little Necron action as well. Jordan Schnurr, rocking some Hypercrypt Legion. Nightbringer, a Risen Tyrant Plasmancer for rerolls. The Silent King, plus a Transcendent Catan to do some actions with. 2 units of Death Marks. 2 Doomsday Arcs, 2 Lucas Destroyers, a Scorpic Destroyer unit. There's no Scorpic Lord, right? So they're just a guy. Yeah, they're just hanging out. Big benefit there, I think, is that Hypercrypt Legion puts your unit into Strategic Reserve, but it doesn't require when you arrive from Strategic Reserve. So one thing you can do is you can hyperphase those guys. Like, you can sit them in the middle of the table and be like, hey, if you come in here, I'm going to punch you. Because Brian Nexus has a lot of good places for infantry to hide. And then if you ever need to, you can put them into hyperphasing and then rapid ingress them later on to actually get a good charge. Obviously, it's like a 2-turn setup because you have to pull them at the end of your opponent's fight phase, wait around, then drop them in their movement phase. But it does let you commit those melee units a little bit better than you normally would be able to. Plus, it also just like, I think it sort of like wombo combos with the Nightbringer and the Silent King pretty well too, because your opponent's incentivized to overcommit to kill them, and having a counter punch that can clear those things out is pretty good. Or vice versa, using the Scorpex to clear objectives, force your opponent to come kill them, and then kill them with the big monsters. Although that's a little tougher because usually the Scorpex will just die to shooting. They're not the hardest thing in the world to kill. Cool to see Scorpex like back in the fight. It hasn't been since 9th edition since they were good because they were really, really awkward. Ryan Cherwich. That's RC Wolf. Rocking some Death Guard. This man absolutely loves his Death Guard, by the way. Taking a Biologist Putrefier, Terminator Sorcerer, 1 Foul Blightspawn, double Malignant Bladecasters, and Typhus. And so I think we're taking sort of the like this mass caster list that we've seen Death Guard do occasionally, because they're little they're once per game familiar ability like supercharges their weapon profile. So one thing they can do is actually like hop out of a transport and then just absolutely trash something for only a couple points. And the Malignant Playcasters can also like slow stuff down, so they make your counterpunch tougher. And the Terminator Sorcerer can also do that on Deep Strike, obviously. He's also a good attachment into Death Shroud Terminators, which I think that we have Typhus who can attach into a Death Shroud Terminator squad, although you might not want to do that because he's also good by himself. He's good either way. He can make the Death Shroud Terminators potentially -2 to be hit, which is a big deal if you're stacking that with another -1 from Nurglings and or the Contagion, which makes them super tanky, or you can attach the Sorcerer and they get -1 damage in melee. Either one is good. 2 Predator Destructors, 2 Death Guard Rhinos, triple Wardog Brigands. Do we have a Rhino for the Plague Marines? Yeah, we do. Okay, I literally just said that. So we have 2 of 5 in one Rhino and the 10-man in the other Rhino. Probably with the Putrefier and the Blightspawn in the big unit. So 2 little kind of utility squads and then 1 big beat stick. Sort of a classic, kind of a classic Death Guard list. That's a real like November style Death Guard list. All right, chat. Should we move on to Frontline Gaming, see what we get? We did talk about some... We took a peek at some Tyranids. It was mostly invasion fleets. This is crazy. I actually did not realize this result right here. Oh, it's because we're looking at Tyranids. What am I talking about? I was like, whoa, look at all these Tyranids in the top. There were a couple Tyranids in the top. But it was mostly because we were looking at the Tyranids specifically. Dominic Gierber with Eldari. Your brain sims rise up. We are playing Ynnari this time around. I got a Farseer, a Spirits here, Yvrain, 10 Storm Guardians, potentially for you to jump into. 2 units of Shroud Runners. I'm shocked, chat, that Shroud Runners do not see more play, because this unit is nuts. They have a huge scout value. They're stupid fast. They have a force multiplication effect, right? Because they can give lethal hits to everything in your army against a specific target, including themselves, which is good because the unit shoots 21 times with no help. Like, Shroud Runners are ludicrous. And I'm so surprised. And plus, for only 80 points, right? That they're not even breaking the bank. They can act as a utility unit. They can act as a screen. They cost almost as much as like your other Aspect Warrior squads that you're taking. And they have like so much utility. They're not even that easy to kill. If I remember correctly, they have 3 wounds. I might be crazy because they have 2 guys in the bike. So they don't, and they're T4 with stealth. So they're not like, they don't die instantly. Yeah, T4, 4-up save, 3 wounds, 5+ invuln, stealth. So like, unlike most Eldar units that just instantly vaporize when you look at them, these guys are actually not that easy to kill, especially because, like, you know, you're almost always in cover, so they're like an actual 3+ armor save. Your small arms fire doesn't do anything to them. Yeah, and they have 1 trillion attacks. It's so interesting to me that these don't see more play. They're crazy good. On top of that, 2 units of Striking Scorpions. So we have a ton of forward operators with the double Shroud Runner, double Striking Scorpion. A Wraith Blade unit. So big tank for the Spirit Seer to jump into. Works so well with Wind Riders, yeah. We are starting to see, actually, that Art of War list from the TLMX Leighton that Jack Harpster played kind of like made me want to play Eldari for a bit. Was running a max brick of Wind Riders with 2 characters attached. It was basically just like an Avatar of Cain and 2 huge bricks with 1 billion characters in them, and then a bunch of utility units. And I was like, this list looks awesome. This list is so cool. It was a huge melee Harlequin brick plus a huge Wind Rider brick and a bunch of supporting characters and little utility units. I was like, this list looks amazing. I love it. Maybe it's because of their size. I mean, maybe. They're so fast, though, that they can like take positions that your infantry aren't able to. And they have a scout, so like you shouldn't be able to get line of sight to them turn 1 because they have total control over where they end up. They have a 9-inch scout move. Like, they move so fast. It's crazy. It's fun to play. That's good to hear. I mean, honestly, I think I've said this before. When I started playing 40k, so I started in 8th edition 2019, like late 2019 was when I, like, quote unquote started. I had played when I was a kid, and from that time I already had a Tyranid army, so I was playing Tyranids, which, to be fair, was a good call because the 8th edition Tyranid Codex was like the most fucking fun thing ever. If I had not been playing that codex, I almost certainly would be an Eldari player. Eldar are just like so weird and wacky. They do the exact same thing that I like to do in a lot of armies, which is like be able to overperform with little tiny units that can combine their damage to kill people. That's like a sort of archetype that I really like. When you have like 3 characters and like a unit of 3 dudes and they together can kill something that's like dramatically more impressive than they are, I'm just like, cool. I don't know what that is. I don't know why I like that so much, but I think it's rad. So we got a Cabalite Warrior squad, 2 Mandrakes, triple Ravagers, triple Scourges, and a Venom. One thing that sometimes gets used is that you can use the Venom to split the Cabalite Warriors into, and then put your brain in one half of them. And she actually can sort of like pal around with your heavy weapon team, which is kind of cool, and gives them a feel no pain. But this is like mostly a Drukhari list, right? we're rocking 17 Dark Lances and 4 Haywire Blasters in the back line. And then backing that up with Eldar utility stuff. The Shroudrunners, I assume, buff the... yeah, they buff the heavy weapons, too. So you could point a Shroudrunner at somebody and all your Dark Lances get lethal hits against it, which is actually kind of sweet. I like it. If only we had a Viper in here, champ. Why don't people play Vipers anymore? What happened to the Viper? Where did that guy go? Did he get... Are they too expensive? They're like 65 points, right? Am I crazy? 75 points. Excuse me. Where did the Viper end up? I don't get it. They're so good. Ignore cover on, like, off of a twin shuriken catapult that is like strapped to a bright lance is like so strong. Damn Legion, how's it going, man? You're not excited about the Deathwatch stuff? They're finally like actually getting support as a faction. They're going to be an Imperial Agents thing that also probably gets their own detachment, right? Which should be fun. If I were an Eldari player, we'd all turn on me. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I would be playing Eldari when they were like literally unbeatable. I don't tend to enjoy the sort of style of play where you're just so dominating it's like silly. I burned out at Tyranids pretty quick in 9th edition when they were super dumb. When after the first couple rounds of nerfs and Tyranids were like just more of they were like a hyper efficient melee faction, I liked it a lot more. Then it felt like your decisions actually mattered. A Warwalker's great, but like ignore cover though. Because the Lances are only AP3, right? So a lot of times you're putting people on a 4-up. If you can tag ignore cover onto somebody, then like they're just sad. Tyranids have to do that with a Pyrovore who's range 12. I wish they could do it at 36 inches. Eldar's cool, chat. Alright, I want to talk about some frickin' Chaos Demons. Also, shout out to Dutes. He did play Adepta Sororitas, although I think he was playing Halid Martyrs. What the fuck is this? Is it a nun? I can't even tell. I think it's a nun. Incredible. Incredible ASCII art, dudes. Yeah, he's playing Halid Martyrs. So a little interesting. Not just the copy pasta Bringers of Flame, but it's still Adepta Sororitas, so whatever. But shout out to Dutes, who's also doing well in the Invitational so far. We're going to be watching him tonight at probably like 10 p.m. US Eastern. But I want to talk about Chaos Demons. Let's talk about some frickin' Demonic Incursion. Robert Hawkins over here. Rockin' good result with Chaos Demons. I played my first game, by the way, chat, yesterday evening. It's up on my Twitch channel if you want to go see it. With the newly buffed Chaos Demons index. Oh my god. Does it feel good. The permanent Shadow of Chaos for the enhancements alone is a big deal. and being able to close deploy stuff to do like actions and things off of Lords of Change and off of Great Unclean Ones. Oh my god, what a quality of life update to Chaos Demons! Holy shit, these guys rule. So I'm rocking a Bloodthirster with the King of Blades, Great Unclean with the Endless Gift, and Lord of Change with Everstave. The trio. So I always say, I actually, this is a little bit embarrassing, but I scripted out and recorded a Demon faction breakdown, and then I was like, it's gonna take me an entire week to edit it, so I didn't do it, and then they ended up getting changed, and Pariah Nexus came out, so it's now out of date, so I have to redo it anyway. So it's like fucking 2 days of work down the drain. But one thing that I likened these guys to is like an adventure, like a D&D adventuring party. So the Bloodthirster's like a fighter, right? He's like your I guess the Bloodthirster's almost a rogue because he's the sort of DPS. He's the melee DPS. Like Bloodthirster, Shalaxi Hellbane, Keeper Secrets. They're like fast, do a bunch of damage, kind of squishy. Great Unclean One. He's like the fighter or the paladin. He's the damage tank, right? He's a million toughness and like super hard to kill. Lord of Change is like the wizard. He's like the range DPS, and does a bunch of like janky shit. If you had Kairos Fateweaver, he's like a cleric or a bard. He's like the support guy. He sits in the back and like does a little magic, buffs the team a little bit, messes with enemies. And Scarbrand, I guess, is, I don't know. He's a berserker. He's a barbarian. He does his rage and hits people with 6 damage melee attacks. If the Bloodthirster isn't a barbarian, but like barbarians eat damage, right? Like that's their thing. They get a bunch of damage reduction when they rage. I haven't played D&D in years, by the way, so if I forget any of my D&D mechanics, I apologize. But the Bloodthirster is just like a big. He's just like a big. He just hits people and then he dies. That's usually what he does. Barbarians, if I remember correctly, are known for generally speaking not dying as fast. But maybe I'm wrong. He does hit people with a big dumb axe though. Bloodthirster Go and Lord of Change to the 40k, Cloud Barret and Tifa. Is who's the lady who gets stabbed by the sword? Eris? Is Kairos Eris? She's like a healer, I guess, right? I guess that'd be Kairos. Kairos, he fits the bill so much better in that he is like Lord of Deceit because he's just like messing with opponents. Aerith? Oh, okay. I apologize. I've never played Final Fantasy, so I don't know all the names. We got double Bloodletters in the battle line plus a Demonate unit. I like all these Nurglings. One interesting thing about the big Nurgling swarm is that it's a really good infiltrator because you can push it up into the center of the table, and you can take up a lot of real estate for people to prevent other infiltrators from dropping in, and also to mess with scouts. Because 6 Nurglings, you get 9 inches of Nurgling base plus another 10 inches of coherency between them. So you get 19 inches of coverage plus 9 inches on either end. So another 18. So you're getting 37 inches of like screening potential. Obviously there's a little bit of leeway there because they're like rounded corners, which means it's 6 Nurglings that can actually block your opponent into their entire deployment zone almost from scouting. The other thing you can do with them if you don't need to do that is they can string back to the Great Unclean One really easily, and he gives them a feel no pain. So then if you're just using them for utility and standing in the middle of the table, they are 24 wounds with a 6S Feel No Pain and a 6+ Invuln, which is like equivalent to like a 5-up essentially. So you're trying to get through like 30 or 36 wounds or something like that to actually get rid of them. So they actually survive quite a bit. And for 70 points, that's a ton of value. We then also have double Plague Bearers and double Flamers. I think the Flamers are back on the menu. It might be part of like kind of a little bit of a rock paper scissors sort of energy, because I think that Flamers are really bad into like Space Marines that have a bunch of wounds and armor of contempt, but they're much better into small like armies with lots of light data, like little tiny data sheets. So we're seeing things like these Chaos Cult lists with like 1 million Chaos Cultists in them. Obviously, Adepta Sororitas with like 1 trillion 5 model infantry units, and I think Flamers are really well positioned to fight that stuff. Pariah Nexus does feel like an MSU sort of environment where you're taking a lot of these little tiny units, and I think Flamers are really great in Demons in that context as well. I took 18 in my list. I think that's probably overkill, but I was like, I gotta kill Sisters. I gotta kill 5 Seraphim every time. I gotta be able to kill 5 Seraphim through their stupid armor of contempt, and I'm gonna do it. Gosh darn it. I have a Moirax to paint. I think Moiraxes are really trash. Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think that's the general consensus right now, which is a little sad. Is it an Imperial Moirax or a Chaos Moirax? Because I bet the Chaos ones have a little bit more interesting technology. Yeah, the Lightning Lock is like, it's an okay profile. It's sustained 2, so Teslas, but it's only 6 shots and AP 0 and 1 damage. So you're like probably converting all your hits, right? So if you have 2 Lightning Locks, you're shooting 12. Winning, let's say 2s, you're shooting infantry, but they save on probably 3s. So you're handing them like 13 wounds, and they take like 5 damage maybe. So you might kill a Tempestus Scion squad with this expensive vehicle, which is not really what you want to be doing. Their Siege Claw build is okay, I guess. If you have a Lancer, maybe that's fine. So you can give him advance and charge. It's kind of cute. That would probably be the capacity in which I play them, because it's actually it's actually a good melee profile, unlike the Warglaive, which is like randomly super bad at melee for some reason. I think that would be where how I played them. Yeah, it's tough to compete with the with War Dogs, to be honest, which is a little bit sad. You could probably pass it off as an Executioner, to be fair. Just be like, don't worry, it's a double cannon guy. I just lease this one because he looks cool. Let's move over to some Astra Militarum chat. Dakota Boyer rocking some combined regiment today. 2 Deathcore Marshals. Oh, I might sneeze, chat. I apologize in a sec if I mute myself. Maybe not. Oh. Nope. I caught it. I caught it right at the end. That was a long lead up to a sneeze. Holy shit. 2 Deathcore Marshals, so we're probably doing some weird infantry stuff. A platoon command squad, a regimental engineer, and a tank commander with grand strategist, so the extra order. Here's something I want to call attention to, chat. Where's Lord Solar at? Where'd he go? He's gone. He's gone missing. We have to find him. He just isn't there. That's crazy. Shock Trooper, 2 Shock Trooper squads, 2 Death Corps of Krieg squads. So we got, here we go. The 2 20-man Death Corps Krieg. So they get the 5+ Feel No Pain from the Death Corps Marshal attaching in, and then they can regenerate guys with their little med packs. Their cool little med packs. 2 Chimeras. Who are we putting in the Chimeras? I guess just the other infantry. So Cadian Shock Troops and Chimeras plus 2 20-man bricks of Death Corps Krieg running up the table. 3 Armored Sentinels. Wild. I think that's because we're trying to take units that the tank commander can order. And the Armored Sentinels, if I remember correctly, are both Squadron and Regiment. So they are... I'm going to double check that. They might have changed that in this edition. Previously, they could be ordered by literally anyone. And I don't know if that's the same... Oh, yeah. Nope. They have all the keywords. So if you're using a once per game reinforcements, we can either use it on the Armored Sentinels or the Attilan Rough Riders. The Sentinels can also be ordered by the tank commander with the extended range or by your regular command squad if you need to. And they get wound rerolls against monsters and vehicles. So they're just like a really efficient profile. It also works in both melee and range, so they can actually chainsaw people kind of okay. That's cute. I didn't know that. So they're firing up to 6 missiles, and then you kill them, and then they regenerate. They reinforce, and you can do it again off the table edge. We have Attilan Rough Riders as a counterpunch, so we're sort of absorbing the center of the table with bricks of Death Corps infantry plus chimeras, and then following that back up with the Rogaldor battle tanks. So that's who's probably being ordered by the tank commander. To be fair, he's probably just sitting behind 2 Rogaldorns, and that's the gun platform. A Basilisk to slow down aggressive enemies that can stop like real infantry blenders from hitting the Death Corps units. So if you don't want to get hit by like Assault Intercessors or Vanguard Veterans or whatever, the Basilisk can slow them down. Plus 2 Symphysis Scion units for utility. This list rules. This list is really cool. This is the most interesting thing about the changes to indirect fire, chat, is that it feels like this faction is so deep. Unlike a lot of the other factions that we talk about where they have like 6 data sheets and that's what they're working off of. Astra Militarum is one of those OG factions that has just an infinite amount of variability. And they can construct it in so many unique ways. Like we see these Bullgrin rush lists, we see these like Ogrin fire support lists, we see the Tempestus Scion builds coming out of the woodwork, and now we're seeing this like infantry rush backed up by Rogaldorns, which is like it's such a classic Astra Militarum feel, right? We have 40 infantry being backed up by the Death Corps Marshals, and then some of the heaviest armor in the game sitting behind it, and that's basically the list. This is so cool. Sick. Robert Moreland also with Astra Militarum. I guess we can stay on the theme. We've got Gaunt's Ghost, Lord Solar Leontis, a platoon command squad, regimental engineer. I feel like the regimental engineer is like the flag, right? It's the indicator. It's the canary in the coal mine. You're like, as soon as you see the engineer in a Militarum list, you're like, oh, this list is going to get spicy. We're going to see some absolute chicanery at the bottom end of this list here. Catachin Jungle Fighter Unit, Infantry Squad. Looks like 15 Bullgrin. Starting off strong. 2, 3 Leman Russ Exterminators. There it is. And the Stormsword. Incredible. So this list is like, it's very, I mean, we've seen these lists in the past, right? The Leman Russ Exterminators sort of key off of each other. They can give each other +1 AP. And then with the Twin Linked Autocannons just do like pretty reasonable damage against a wide variety of targets. They're also buffing the Stormsword and their relatively inexpensive Leman Russ chassis, which is a very difficult to kill profile. You're trying to hold things off in the center of the table with the Bullgrin squads, force your opponents to come out and attack this stuff to break line of sight, and then the Stormsword just kills them. So, sick. There you go, chat. Does the indirect fire nerf affect the 1,000 Sun Strat that gives indirect fire? It does, but functionally it hasn't really changed much because like 80% of the attacks that you're shooting from it are torrent, so who cares? Also, if you're shooting Magnus, he's probably rerolling anyway, so yeah, it actually did not change too much. They did technically get a nerf, but the amount that it has debuffed them is not particularly not insane. Greg Harris, we can move over to some Adeptus Custodes. Probably talked quite a lot about some Militarum. Adeptus Custodes doing well with a shield host. Greg Harris, double blade champions, a custodian guard squad, just 5 in that one. An Anathema Psychona Rhino, double Caladius Grav tanks, double custodian wardens. So that's where the blade champions are going. And I wonder if we have Kyria Draxus. We do. Lord Inquisitor Kyria Draxus for the. Ooh, this is a spicy allied selection here, chat. Double retinue, double Inquisitor. Okay, so Kyria Draxus for the guardian, for the just the guard squad, so she can hop in there and make use of their buffs. A Telemon Heavy Dreadnought, nuts. Let's. I think that's kind of a similar deal to the Leman Russ that we were just talking about. Basically, all you want to do is get your opponent to a point where they're forced to move forward and engage you, so that your Caladius Grav tanks and the Custodian Guard can counterpunch them. And the Telemon's a really good way to do that. He's not the most expensive thing in the world, still over 200 points, which is a lot. He's only 12 wounds as well, which is like kind of not that great. But he is -1 damage, and he punches good. He's got 5 3 damage melee attacks. His profile is just kind of okay, but he is very difficult to kill, which is good. And you're backing it up with all this support. So the Inquisitor can jump into the Inquisitorial Henchman Squad. The interesting thing about the Henchman Squad is that all of their like unit buffs are sort of like reverse leader buffs. They work while they are being led, not while they aren't coming from the leader itself. So Inquisitorial Henchmen typically don't have any abilities, but once an Inquisitor joins them, all of their special abilities turn on. The big one typically is the Mystic, because the Mystic gives you a 12-inch anti-deep strike bubble. So you can use that to protect the backline. You can protect the Caladius Grav tanks from people pushing in on them, because that's... it's very dangerous because Custodians, you're really only playing with like 3 pretty actually scary melee units between the Custodian Wardens and the Guard. And those are usually pushing up the table to try to take table space. So you leave this big area in the back that your opponent can ingress into and can mess with. And these guys are just going to be able to protect that backline pretty well. Lets the rest of your army push super far forward. One interesting piece of technology that saw a little bit of play last season, or at least I think Index Custodes before their Codex came out, because they sort of fell off the deep end, was that you would take the Henchman Squad with no Inquisitor. You would just take Kyria Draxus, and then you could swap her in and out of the Henchman Squad or the Custodian Guard Squad wherever you needed her. So if you were up against something that had deep strikes or uppy downy effects or close range deep strikes, or like Demons, Hypercrypt Legion, Grey Knights, all that stuff, you could put her into the Henchman Squad and make them super tough to deal with. She also makes them hard to shoot at, which is huge for them too. And if you needed the extra hitting power from her joining the Custodian Guard Squad, you could swap her in there. We're only paying an extra 55 points for the unit here, though, and giving them the permanent access to their abilities, so that's also good. Talking about Inquisitors, bought Codiaz 2 months ago. Did a fairly decent paid job up in him. If you have to buy a new model due to the bird being separate, you'll be pissed. I don't think you will. No, I think the new Codiaz model, generally speaking, essentially every time a new model has been released like that, as long as you rebase your existing model on the new base size, you're good to go. The bird, you can probably find a proxy of a bird. I think you could get something else. That model, by the way, we didn't really talk about it, but it's real bad. I guess we could do a quick pop over to the Warhammer community article. I was talking to some people. They said it might be the photography because it's kind of an angle that might like kind of put emphasis on his legs, but like his legs are just too big, man. He looks so like disproportionate. And it's weird. It's just, I like the bird. The bird's cool. And I think like on a technical level, the model's impressive, right? Like there's a lot of really like intricate detail here that's really cool, but it just doesn't look good. It's too much flat open space on this like weird disproportionate like baby man. I don't know. Yeah, it looks so plain. Yeah, it's too flat, right? It's too flat and featureless. I agree. 100%. Nothing going on over there. He looks huge in the Battle Force image. He looks like he's falling backwards. I think he's like stepping up, right? So he might be leaned back a little bit if he's like stepping up on something. Where did the Battle Forces go? Ugh. Oh, here? What base size is he? He's a 40, right? So he is big, yeah. He has like Space Marine sized for sure. He probably is the size of an Intercessor, which is typically, that's not unheard of. 40k has a very generous, a very loose relationship with scaling. Like rhinos are like half the size they realistically should be. Characters tend to be a little like a head taller than their unit, so they're easier to pick out, which is fine. So he's probably a little bigger than he like should be, quote unquote. But yeah, the interesting. They're doing battle forces for each of the Ordos. Are the Ordos gonna be their detachments? Yeah, thematic detachments: Malleus, Xenos, and Hereticus. Cool. I'm glad we get, like, we're basically getting an Inquisition Codex. I think that's cool. A little sad for the Deathwatch folks out there who are now just an Ordo Xenos army, but I think that's a small price to pay. Also, we get Euclidean Star Striders back, Elcidian Star Striders, whatever they're called. My favorite, like, stupid faction from 8th edition. You could just play them by themselves, and they were just, like, worthless garbage, but technically you could. I wonder if we'll get new GK Terminator sculpts. Oh, with the Grey Knight Codex, maybe. Certainly not with this Codex, because these are the existing sculpts. The Grey Knights are... The Grey Knight range is... It feels weird because I remember when the range came out, because I was playing at the time, and I actually bought a Grey Knight army. And I really like those kits. I think that was like the last hurrah for the old school, like early 2000s era Warhammer, where their whole philosophy was just to pack a sprue with value. It was like, they would be like, hey, do you want every option that this unit could ever be equipped with, plus additional like head options and different like options for posing? The Grey Knights sprue, this is the best thing ever, because they have a Stormbolter on their arm, right? They have a free hand, and their sprue includes, for people who haven't assembled a Grey Knight army, their sprue includes a set of power armored hands in different poses. So there's like fist, there's punching, there's like a bunch of different like hand motions, and it's the most valuable thing in any box that I've encountered. There's just like 10 just Space Marine hands that you can do whatever you want with. And so those became conversion fodder, and all the Grey Knight sprues that I bought, which is a lot. That box is insane value. Those have become conversion fodder for every Space Marine character I've ever used, because I always get to do something cool with them. I've even used them in other games where I do hand swaps or weapon swaps with people. that kit is amazing. But it's that was like the whole philosophy for Games Workshop for the longest time. Hey, here's a box. Here's way too many bits, so many that you'll have to throw them out, and you're like, oh my god, okay. And they were, there was like a learning curve to assembling them and knowing what to do with all the pieces. But holy shit, the amount of conversion material I got from those was amazing. But now you get exactly what you need and not a penny more, not a single thing more, which is much more efficient and easier to put together, but less value, which makes me sad. The hand holding the bloodletter. Yeah, there's the bloodletter hand. He's got a bloodletter by the horns. That's a good one. And there's one with there's like a plague bearer head, right? With a sword through it, and the guy's like holding the sword up. Love that guy. Love that guy. But yeah, Inquisitor Codex looks bad. That's my take. All right, chat. Well, we're coming up to the end here, slowly but surely. Does anybody have any other factions? Jesus Christ. Any other armies that we want to talk about before we wrap things up? What does the Navigator do in game? I can't remember what all of the Inquisitorial henchmen do, but I'm sure we can find out. We have the technology, chat. We could look it up. Do I have henchmen on my database here? I do. Here they are. So the is this what we're talking about? The Mystic? So there's the regular acolytes, which are like the standard sort of like gun guys. Give you -1 to be wounded. Mystics give you the 12-inch AT deep strike zone. They give you an Omni Scrambler. The Jacaro gives you +1 to wound at range, and the Demon Host gives you 5+ vulnerable save. So the unit itself is kind of tanky, right? They're 2 wounds, 5+ invul, -1 to be wounded. And then they have an anti-deep strike bubble and probably a heavy weapon that's +1 to wound, which is kind of sweet, actually. If you have a Jacaro in it, but I think the Jacaro costs extra. Although he's got a strength 6, 2 damage gun. Let's go. Any Grey Knights? Peak Grey Knights. Let's go back to USO Tacoma. Look for some Grey Knights. It was interesting how hard Grey Knights have fallen off, because they didn't really change. They just got points changes. Carter Wagner here, 55th place. Triple Brotherhood Librarian, one with Sigil. A Nemesis Dread Knight with Inescapable Wrath. Kaldor Drago. 3 Brotherhood Terminators in a Strike Squad. 2 Nemesis Dread Knights and a Calidus Assassin. So, just running a bunch of characters attached to Brotherhood Terminator squads. Run around the table, Strike Squad to lock in your home objective so you can leave it and not feel bad. And then a couple of Nemesis Dread Knights for fire support. Pretty standard stuff, to be honest. It's kind of a classic Grey Knights list with a bunch of Terminators in it. It's nice to see Grey Knights sort of return to that, like, platonic ideal, because it was a little annoying seeing them, like, contort into these bizarre skews, which didn't really look like Grey Knight lists anymore. I wish they had never released the Nemesis Dread Knight, though, because it's continuously, every time, it's like, at some point in an edition, it's the best thing in the Grey Knights Codex, and as soon as it is, you take, like, 6 of them, and all the Grey Knights disappear out of the Grey Knight list, and it makes me sad. It doesn't help that they don't look very good, either. What do I think of the Cerastus Knight Lancer? I think the Cerastus Knight Lancer is fucking awesome, is what I think of the Cerastus Knight Lancer. I think that I wonder if I would be hard-pressed to find too many of the big Knight datasheets that I hate right now, that I like just objectively don't want to see. I think the Acastus Knights are kind of a meme. The Cerastus Acheron is a little bit sad because it doesn't get affected by its own bondsman. Oh no, this is a different. I think I'm thinking of the Castigator. Excuse me. This guy removes cover from people, so he's not very good, I guess, because he's a flamer. So like the Acheron and the Castigator, I'm kind of meh on. The Megara and the Styrex are also kind of meh. The Atropos and the Lancer are phenomenal, and basically most of the Codex Knights are good. At least anyone that's like double gun or that has a fist is usually pretty solid. Dread Knight spam kind of stupid. Need more answers for vehicles. Yeah, that was a little bit of the downside of, and I was, to be honest, I was a little worried about this. Thousand Suns have kind of like co-opted it by having like really just hyper dangerous data sheets. But the psychic factions typically relied on psychic powers to do reliable damage to vehicles. And I do think that there's a trend where the factions that were heavily reliant on psychic powers in previous editions are now have a tough time against heavily armored enemies. I mean, it's true for Tyranids, right? Tyranids, they're slowly getting better as they're updating the Codex. But Tyranids just, they fall over to like Imperial Knights. They just can't deal with the mass toughness. Grey Knights are the same way. They have to rely on the vehicles and stuff in order to deal with those big enemies. Thousand Suns obviously are different because they got full wound rerolls everywhere all the time, and plus wound and devastating wounds. They definitely got a different set of mechanics. If they had rewritten all the psychic factions to be like fucking stupid ass Thousand Suns, we wouldn't be in a different situation. I'd be playing the shit out of some zone thropes right now. But I definitely think that was like the removal of Smite from the game was a little problematic. They needed to replace it with something that was similar. And at least Vortex of Doom is a good analog, but it's not enough by itself. If you want to see a non-winning list, you went 2 and 6. You know what, Drew? Challenge accepted. Here's Drew's list. The Knights of Codiaz. Oh, you took a Valiant. That is a brave move, sir. Crusader, Gallant, Valiant. No Canis Rex. Inquisitor Codiaz with Inquisitorial Henchman. I actually love Codiaz. Alright, real talk. Is Codiaz good right now? He's probably good, right? Because he gives you command points when enemy abilities generate command points. Which, like, everyone has currently. Because so many people have been windmill slamming CP regeneration into their lists to pay for new orders. That I actually think Codiaz, like, his stock went way up, right? Because everyone's like, oh, I'll take Swarmlord. Oh, I'll take Kairos Fateweaver. Oh, I'll take Lord Solar Leontis. Oh, I'll take Azrael. Like if you were to consider, I was like half of the top armies or more, or half of the widely played armies. Or like the archetypes in army lists, you know what I mean? Like when you look at a faction, there is a reasonable chance that they will have a CPU generation. I don't know how to talk about that. Probably like half of the most common archetypes in the game have CPU generation in it. And he does hit hard to melee. Yeah, his spell is nuts. Codiaz, I think every time I've seen him on the table, I'm like, oh, watch out for this guy. Because he's a fucking insane data sheet. And then people play against him and they're like, oh my god, what is happening right now? He has a devastating wound anti-infantry range attack. So it's devastating on a 4+ d6 shots. Randomly not blast, even though it says it's blast, which is weird. And he has a strength 9 AP 3 damage Thunderhammer. And then he gives you CP all the time. So, like, he's just kind of good. I don't know. If he retains these abilities, he's going to be amazing. There's like another Inquisitor profile that has yeah, I think all the Inquisitors have like really weird psychic attacks. Like the standard Inquisitor, if you take the Psyker upgrade, has a devastating wound torrent. His gun is like it's like a side graded version of Rodagus's gun. Like it's slower strength and AP, but higher range, so he gets to use it more often. Like his gun is nuts. And there's like a lot of that. I don't remember what Greyfax does. I guess she just shoots you with a gun. I guess she's the anti-witch person. If she was a witch herself, that would be weird. But yeah, the Inquisitor psychic powers are like weird. I love them. Had a few opponents do a double take. Yeah, you're like, but Thunderhammer's a strength 8. And that's not even a Space Marine. His Thunderhammer should be strength 6. And you're like, I don't know, man. Have you seen the guns on this dude? He's using his powerful thighs to hit you. One thing I'll say about the Valiant is you gave him a serious Guardian, so you up down. And half of your opponents gave you a deployment zone drop, yeah. The downside is that I feel like you want the AP reduction upgrade on this guy. And I like Mysterious Guardian on him. It feels like he wants to take both enhancements, but he can't, which is unfortunate. So I think a lot of times, because he can't Overwatch, he pushes up really far, and your opponent's like, all right, well, I have to kill that guy. And then they do. And you're like, oh, okay, well, fair enough. But he is such a distraction Carnifex, it's crazy. I mean, Beef Supreme is running a Mysterious Guardian Castellan in the Invitational, right? It's definitely like it's a good archetype. Like, it's not a bad place to put that upgrade. Primaris Psychers. Yeah, my favorite is comparing Primaris Psychers to Primaris, to like Primaris Librarians. And the Primaris Psyker, which is just a regular-ass guy, like blows up a fucking Land Raider. Like, he kills rhinos, like, on average dice. And the Primaris Librarian, a powerful Space Marine who's hundreds of years old and has studied the arcane arts for centuries, is like D6 shots with devastating. Okay, cool. Thank you. It's so silly. But that's okay. I appreciate that the rules do not one-to-one represent the fluff, because down that road lies madness. Get Canis Rex Sunday. Promise after this weekend you start buying Drukhari. Drukhari are hot commodity right now. They're doing good work. They seem so strong in Pry Nexus. All right, chat. Well, I think that with that being the case, I'm probably going to wrap things up here. Good discussion today. This weekend of events were nuts. We saw so many cool lists doing well. I think that there's a little bit of sort of compaction at the top of the metagame right now, but given the insane results that we've been seeing in Pry and Nexus so far, it's been really interesting to watch. Like, Orcs being like the winningest faction this week was not something that I think that anyone expected, and it's interesting to see go down. So I'm excited for what the future holds, chat. We'll see if Orcs continue to do well. I don't know if that'll be the case. But yeah, we see all these other factions cropping up as well, which is cool. Votann OP. Too strong. Please nerf. Hecaton land fortresses need to be worth a hecaton of points. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hop off, everyone. Thanks for watching. Please come hang out with me on Twitch. I'll even post a link. I don't know if YouTube will like ban me, although I think that they changed the TOS so that you're allowed to stream on different platforms, whatever. There's my Twitch link. We're going to be live in just over an hour over there. with the Invitational T5SU Invitational games. It's going to be Blood Angels into Thousand Suns, first off, to see the Group D winner. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Please come give me a follow. Hang out with me over there. And yeah, it's going to be great. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Remember to keep it classy, have happy wargaming, and I'll see you in the next one.